1993. A group of religious fundamentalists attempts to topple the World Trade Center by detonating a rented truck filled with ammonium nitrate, urea, and nitric acid. 1995. Timothy McVeigh blows up the federal building in Oklahoma City, the result of his growing anger with the federal government. 1999. Two members of an anti-government militia are arrested for plotting to detonate 24 million gallons of liquid propane at a storage facility in Elk Grove, California. 2001. A small group of well-organized terrorists hijacks 4 commercial aircraft, crashing 2 into the World Trade Center and 1 into the Pentagon, while the passengers of the 4th cause its crash in a Pennsylvania field, preventing its apparent attack on yet another target. Thousands of innocent people are killed. These are only a few examples of terrorist acts that have drawn attention to the need for improved security of hazardous materials and America's transportation system. While some of these incidents did not involve the transportation of hazardous materials, they illustrate how hazardous materials have the potential to be easily transformed into a terrorist weapon. Hazardous materials are essential to the economy of the United States and the well-being of its people. They fuel our cars and trucks, and heat and cool our homes and offices. Hazardous materials are used in farming and medical applications, and in manufacturing, mining, and other industrial processes. Millions of tons of explosive, poisonous, corrosive, flammable, and radioactive materials are transported every day. Hazardous materials move by plane, train, truck, or vessel in quantities ranging from several ounces to many thousands of gallons. In the wrong hands, however, hazardous materials can pose a significant threat. Addressing this threat is vital to protecting our citizens and our economy. In this interactive program, we will look at recommendations for actions that you can take as carriers, shippers, and producers of hazardous materials to enhance their secure transportation. The information presented will assist you in complying with new DOT Security General Awareness training requirements for offerers and transporters of hazardous materials that went into effect March 25, 2003. The new rule requires security awareness training and record keeping as described in 49 CFR Part 172.704. An interactive test is provided at the end of this module. When the logged-on user completes the test and requests a score, the user will be able to print out a personalized record indicating the user's name, the date the test was completed, and the user's score. Completion of this training module and the interactive test will meet the new security awareness training requirement. The new rule also requires the development of and adherence to a security plan by each person who offers for transportation or transports in commerce one or more of the hazardous materials described in Part 172.800. At a minimum, security plans require measures to confirm information provided by job applicants hired for positions that involve access to and handling of the hazardous materials covered by the security plan. Measures to deny access by unauthorized persons to the hazardous materials covered by the security plan, and measures to address the assessed risks of hazardous materials covered by the security plan en route from origin to destination. Security plans must be in writing and retained for as long as they remain in effect. They must be revised and updated as necessary to reflect changing circumstances. Hazmat employees responsible for implementing the security plan under the new rule must be trained on the specifics and implementation of the plan, in addition to the Security General Awareness training requirement. This training module does not meet the DOT requirement for security plan training. What if a tank truck carrying gasoline is crashed in New York's Holland Tunnel? What if a cargo of chlorine gas is hijacked and released at a large public event? These unthinkable acts are possible. Thus, the security of hazardous materials in transportation is of critical importance. This program is divided into three main parts. In Part 1, we will look at the potential targets, who is at risk, and what might be the most vulnerable targets for terrorists or saboteurs. In Part 2, we will look at potential threats, who might be intent on doing harm, how we can recognize them, and what we can do to protect cargo when it is most at risk. And in Part 3, we will explore some of the things that you can do to deny access to and prevent the theft or diversion of hazardous materials by vandals or terrorists. The prevention tools include vulnerability assessments, security reviews, guidelines for conducting employee background checks, and facility security. As we progress through the program, we will stop to ask you some questions. These questions are not part of the final test found at the end of this module. They are just a chance for you to see how much you already know about the security of hazardous materials. You are an important part of a trillion-dollar industry. Transportation accounts for 11% of our nation's economy. Here's the first question. See if you can guess how many shipments of hazardous material are made every day in the United States. Click on your best guess. See if you can guess how many shipments of hazardous material are made every day in the United States. Click on the box next to your answer and then click on Submit. The correct answer is C. 800,000 shipments of hazardous materials are made every day, and 95% of these shipments are made by truck. The shipment of goods and materials is essential to commerce and the quality of American life. The transportation industry brings food to our tables, heat to our homes, and fuel to our cars. Many materials that are classified as hazardous materials are essential products to industry, but potential deadly weapons in the hands of a terrorist. Some chemical mixtures can cause a powerful explosion if detonated or ignited. For example, the destructive power of ammonium nitrate in the wrong hands was witnessed in the first bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993 and in Oklahoma City in 1995. The task of securing hazardous materials against falling into the wrong hands is daunting. The transportation of gasoline and propane commands a nationwide fleet of 85,000 trucks. Law enforcement agencies alone cannot guarantee the safety of these trucks or the security of our transportation system. They need the help of carriers, shippers, and producers. These are some of the more accessible targets in the transportation system, but there are other vulnerable assets. Let's try another question. What do you think might be a credible scenario for a catastrophic activity? From these scenarios, select all that you think could happen. Unfortunately, all of these scenarios are credible because they either happened or were planned and successfully prevented. In 1993, a group of religious fundamentalists executed a plan to topple the World Trade Center towers with a powerful explosion. A rented, non-placarded truck loaded with ammonium nitrate, urea, and nitric acid was detonated in the parking garage beneath Tower Number 1. The bombers had underestimated the structural strength of the tower, and the building did not collapse. In 1993, the FBI arrested 4 members of a terrorist cell planning on hijacking a gasoline tank truck and igniting it in the Hudson River Tunnel. The recent accidental truck fire in a tunnel in Europe in July 2001 demonstrated the potential lethality of such an event. In 1999, 2 members of an anti-government militia were arrested in Elk Grove, California, for planning an attack on a storage facility to ignite 24 million gallons of liquid propane. Some experts feel that the resulting blast and fire would have destroyed homes, schools, and businesses within a mile radius of the facility. Since the threat, the propane company has added numerous security devices. The 2 saboteurs were convicted in May of 2002. These are just some of the more widely published acts of violence that illustrate the vulnerability of hazardous materials in our transportation system. These were overt attempts to detonate, ignite, or release hazardous materials in a public place. But there are other possible hostile activities that require vigilance. Consider the contamination of a city's water supply or air by the intentional release of hazardous material. Be aware of the potential threat from the theft or hijacking of a truck loaded with hazardous material, tampering with valves on tank trucks or at tank farms, or the fraudulent shipment to a group or individual intent on destruction. Railroad switching systems, tracks, highways, and bulk transportation equipment may be targets for a saboteur. Sensitive infrastructure, such as bridges, tunnels, and dams, may also be at risk. In addition, a saboteur may target chemical plants, tank farms, and loading facilities. Other attractive targets could be high-density population centers, either permanent like apartment complexes or temporary like sporting events. Structures, too, like major elements of a city's skyline or historic monuments, may also be vulnerable. These are some of the potential targets. Now let's look at potential threats. We'll try to put a face on the potential perpetrator, explore how we can recognize suspicious activity, and discuss when and where cargo is most at risk.